Hello, all. Welcome to Murder at the Round Table. My name is Raf, and I'm joined today by my awesome co-host Ipsha.
Hello.
So, first off, I guess just small talk. How's weather? How's life?
How's the weather? We're in the same city. Weather's been weird. Uh, Weather's been very weird.
Mhm.
It's rainy some days, it's sunny some days, and a lot of people, because of the weather change from cold to hot, a lot of people have been getting sick.
Yeah, I honestly, I bring it up because I usually say where we live, weather is not small talk, really, because it changes so much. And different periods of this, or not different periods, but different parts of the city can be experiencing totally different, ecosystems, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Exactly. I've had instances where my school and work, I have to travel to more central, I guess. It's no longer the north because the city is now much, much developed far north.
yeah,
But from where I live to where I go to work and where I used to go to school, it takes about an 45 minutes to an hour, and it'll be sunny, it'll be fine where I am when I leave
hmm,
the house, but as soon as I get to the other side, it's like really bad. Really bad rain or snow or something. And I'll
yeah.
message like my mom being like, "Oh, is it raining or snowing over there?" And she's like, "No. No, it's perfectly fine." So, yeah, the ecosystems are very different depending on what part of the city you live in, for sure.
I've actually started having this idea that every episode we should say one small vague thing about where we live.
About the
No,
weather.
not necessarily the weather, just like
Oh,
where we live, and then in time,
about where it like just have people.
yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of not really where we live, I had someone DM me. I actually don't check our social media DMs, but there's a person who DM'd me, and maybe it was out of sheer curiosity, but would you like me to read the message that he sent?
Yeah, for sure.
He said, "Hey guys, I want to say that I like your podcast. Just listen to the first episode of season 2. I think it was a great episode. So good to hear from you guys, from you again." So we had a little bit conversation and I thanked him for listening. So I'm assuming he's been listening, or they've been listening rather, for a really long time, or since we did
Damn, okay.
season 1. And it's really nice to see the support go through to season 2.
Yeah, wow. Somebody's actually listening to these?
I know. Well, which is really nice.
I kid. Well, my ego just shot up today. Damn, that's nice.
I know. So you said a vague, something that's very vague about the city. I think weather would be a good one. That's a very vague description because I don't know if there's other cities and provinces in Canada with really random weather like ours, but
Hmm.
weather is something to talk about here. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, like I was saying, it doesn't necessarily have to be weather every episode or something, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just a thought I had because I was like, oh, in time, even though we're not really saying where we are, someone could probably piece it together
Oh yeah, definitely.
with enough context clues. But anyways, for today's pre-segment, like always, when it's my episode, um, I'll be doing a movie recommendation. In this case, the two obvious ones that everyone's been talking about recently. Very
Barbie and how do you pronounce
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer? I'm actually kind of excited to watch Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
I've seen a little bit of like the descriptions and reviews. I
mm,
actually didn't know what it was about and the fact that it was regarding. This is my old fault, like the lack of knowing history. But I
yeah,
didn't know it was based on a real story, and I got to find out what it was truly about, and it just kind of piqued my interest a little bit more.
yeah. It's pretty good. The way they set up the movie is almost like Avengers style, kind of like that's the vibe it
Mm-hmm.
gives off. But it's like 3 hours of of just history with some dialogue that's kind of been added in there to like make it seamless
Mm-hmm.
and whatever. But yeah, I know some people who are doing the Barbieheimer,
Yeah.
which was the back to back watching
Uh-huh.
and like going to the theater for like 5 hours, which is crazy. But if anyone does it, like it's probably going to also be jarring because they're so contrasting,
Yeah.
and they're good in their own way. I would say Barbie is more enjoyable in terms of like comedy, and there's some kind of like soulful aspects to it, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. But it was good vibes.
Yeah.
And then Oppenheimer was what you would expect, kind of heavy,
Quite the opposite. Yeah.
but it was good. It was really good.
I really enjoyed the memes. A lot of people were talking about how The Dark Knight and then Mamma Mia released on the same day, and both movies did extremely well. And
Yeah.
whereas I forget how many years after from there, it was the Barbie and Oppenheimer, and so they expected both movies to do really well too. So but my favorite meme so far was this lady. Somebody found this lady, and her name is Barb, and last name was Heimer. So,
Yeah.
and somebody took a picture of that and from Facebook or whatever, and the caption was, "She's about to have a grand weekend, big weekend for her."
Oh, actually, yeah. Her follower count probably just jumped up because of that picture.
Very much. And she has nothing to do with either of the movies. Her name just happens to be Barb and
Hmm.
Heimer, and that's it. But yeah, I hope she has a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's about it for those two. If anyone sees it, obviously let us know what you thought. Both were really great in their own respects.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so getting into the episode, just to start off, so in my last episode, I discussed like an interest in the concept of like crimes committed under hypnosis. So I've come up to find like many
Mhm.
examples of, I guess, allegedly hypnotic crimes. But before I jump into it, Ipsha, what are your thoughts on crimes like this? Like, have you ever heard of anything like this before,
Like under
other than just
hypnosis,
like, yeah, other than just like in a film or something?
I've I've seen like shows, TV shows. Obviously, the story isn't real,
Yeah.
but when I used to watch these shows, crime shows, I'd assume that things like that did happen because, like, oftentimes shows based on crime and law and whatever, these are they take ideas from real things, right? Things that happened. So I assumed it did
Hmm.
happen. I've never like looked into crimes like that, but recently I've been the podcasts that I listen to have have had a few where crimes were committed under hypnosis. I was gonna forward them to you. I haven't listened to them because I was like, maybe if Raf listens to it
Hmm.
and has an interest in them, you can present them.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. Send me the link after.
Yeah, so I'm sure crimes like these happened before even you
Hmm.
presented your previous episode. It's just I've never looked into them.
Okay. So I guess just like at a baseline, what I found is, well, first, there's been quite a few, a lot more than I was expecting. And you had kind of like two types. So, where you had
Mm-hmm.
perpetrators who were under hypnosis, or the perpetrators of crime were like hypnotists themselves, right? So crimes related to like thievery and sexual assaults usually had hypnotists as the perpetrators,
Mm-hmm.
while you had crimes related to like thievery again, usually, or murder had perpetrators under hypnosis. So the idea of committing murder or like any type of
Right.
crime under hypnosis is very sensationalized and has been kind of the source of like many movies and stories. Because likewise, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know any real examples of this. I just kind of would see it on TV now and again. Somebody would start waving a watch in front of somebody's face, and all of a sudden they're going around shooting a place up. So I didn't really understand if like, oh, this was like really a thing. And I guess honestly, I get it because
Mm-hmm.
how many times have like we had intrusive thoughts and like not acted on them,
Yeah.
right? Um, unless you like somebody was like inebriated or just wasn't like
Yeah.
fully in the right state of mind, and maybe hypnotism is more like that. But there is a bit of an allure to a person just, you know, doing whatever and
Mm-hmm.
not having that like secondary thought process, checking and making sure, um, you're not going too far. So, like, going back to, I guess, today's episode, we'll be going through two main cases that were related to this.
Yeah.
Beginning with the case of George Giles de la
Mm-hmm.
Tourette. I'll just move forward by calling him Tourette,
Yeah.
which is his case, I guess, is one of the earliest cases recorded discussing hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, but it's not. Well, you'll see. You'll see.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And oh, right. And as a follow up on my last episode, so I was gonna go look up what went down with Sandy Charles from that Jonathan Timpson case. What's going on with the kid once he grew up and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So looks like he has spent most of the time incarcerated in the Regional Psychiatric Center in Saskatchewan.
Right.
And the last article I found, which was posted in 2014, had him. So it was covering like him requesting court to be moved to Saskatchewan Hospital, which acts as a psychiatric rehabilitation center, and this would like eventually lead to his release back into the public.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all I could see. So I'm assuming he's still at the regional psychiatric center. I don't know if he was accepted to
Mm-hmm.
get moved to Saskatchewan Hospital or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, he got the help that he needed.
Uh, you would hope.
Yeah, it's a big question mark, but I'm trying to think back. I'd hope.
Because especially because he was a kid when all of that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as terrible as that was, he was still a kid. So if there was a way for him to be rehabilitated and somehow brought back, like I feel like I'm saying brought back like he's off in like another dimension or something, but like you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
reintegrated into society and such.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. So trigger warning for today, just murder. Pretty
Fair
much
enough.
that's the list of it. And it's in our title. Shouldn't really need to say it, but yeah.
I haven't had any Karens yet.
Oh, they will come.
One day. I haven't had like rarely have I had I mean, I've never had one being like, you guys talk about murder way
Yeah.
too often.
No, they'll probably show up when we're bigger.
We start like posting episodes
Yeah.
regularly.
I will also disclaim all of this by saying I don't claim to know much on hypnosis in general. I read a few articles, I watched some videos, I got some deets. Don't sue me.
He knows a lot about rockets and astronauts.
Yeah, exactly. My wheelhouse is more engineering. It's nothing here, but it's still an interesting subject. In my own words, when I'm looking at
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis, so it would be defined as entering a subconscious state where you're highly responsive to suggestion and direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically used in therapy for like recalling and processing traumatic events and suppressed memories, but it's also utilized in investigations similarly to help accused
Mm-hmm.
individuals to kind of like recall events due to any sort of like shock, amnesia,
Yeah.
intoxication, etc. All of that. So now, regarding people under hypnosis committing crimes, though, there seems to be a lot of contention
Yeah.
on that front, as well as papers discussing like this topic extensively that somebody else can find online. So the contention comes in on whether or not someone can be convinced to commit something horrible or against their morals or against the law just based on like strong suggestion, right?
Mm-hmm.
From looking into these crimes, I feel like yes, it is possible, but not in the traditional way of like mind controlled zombie style. Seems like, someone can be suggested into committing or doing something they may have already considered,
Yeah.
but also you may be able to convince them to take part in something they aren't open to through intense manipulation. And I'll kind of expand on that more towards the end, like in our conclusion.
Interesting.
On to like our first case. So with our good friend here, George Giles de la Tourette, or I'll just move forward calling him Tourette as I indicated before. So this is arguably one of, if not the first court case involving hypnotism. So now on the crime specifically, let's start by painting a scene. Okay, so we find ourselves in Paris, 1893. Okay,
Paris.
maybe the sun is shining, maybe it's raining, I don't know. But it's very like,
Mm.
sophisticated Paris. Old school. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Paris. Just romantic vibes everywhere.
Pretty much.
Let's start there.
Just romantic vibes everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere.
So a young woman enters the doctor's office and confronts him, requests him to pay her 50 francs that he owes. I tried to find a conversion rate of like what 50 francs then to what that would mean now in Canadians, and I couldn't really find like a good estimate. I think it was something like $600,
Damn.
but not too sure because the site I was using had like all these like different variables it was looking at. Sorry, she confronts him asking for like 50 francs that apparently he allegedly owes. He makes excuses, and as he goes to like escort her out, she shoots him in the head. Now, this man, so the doctor, is Tourette, and
Mm-hmm.
he has now become a victim of a very terrible irony, and you will see why soon enough. The doctor Tourette, known today primarily for Tourette's syndrome, was a neurologist who worked in a teaching hospital in Paris known as the Salpêtrière. I think that's how you say that.
Right.
Yeah, Salpêtrière. I believe that's how you say that. This is where another neurologist by the name of Charcot had begun the process of building modern neurology. And one of the unique approaches utilized at this hospital was study and application of clinical hypnosis.
Okay.
On talking about Charcot specifically, there were two main schools of thought at the time.
Yeah.
So there was the first school, Charcot School, which believed that if you could be hypnotized, you had a clear hereditary tendency to hysteria,
Mm-hmm.
which was kind of like the bad news. But the good news was that you couldn't be convinced or like hypnotically driven to do anything against your moral conscience. For example, commit a crime, go against the law, whatever. Like,
Right.
but the counter school of thought was School of Nancy, which they saw it differently as, in their view, hypnotic suggestion was so powerful that you could be made to do literally anything, any terrible thing. It basically had the ability to make you into an amoral automaton, just a puppet on strings. So this was a debate that was happening back and forth at the time in Paris,
Mm-hmm.
and something that was in the lecture halls got quickly pulled into the courts following the recent murder of a bailiff by a young woman and her lover. But the long story short of that is that they found a bit. So they were trying to rob him, didn't turn out very successful.
Mm-hmm.
Found a bit of money on him, and after stuffing his body in a trunk, they left Paris. The couple later went their separate ways, but eventually the woman turned herself in and pointed out her accomplice.
Okay.
At the time, a doctor from the School of Nancy gave an expert testimony stating it was possible to commit crimes under hypnotic suggestion. His rivals at the School of Charcot argued against this testimony, indicating that no hypnotic crime had ever been proven outside of a few lab experiments. This went back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, the woman on trial was sentenced to 20 years of hard labor, and the guy was sent to the guillotine. Now, Tourette was ecstatic because for him, he was part of the school of
Mm-hmm.
Charcot that believed that this was not possible, and no kind of hypnotism would lead to a crime, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So he wrote on the verdict, proud of the school's triumph in court because that was displayed like publicly. Now, we flash forward 2 years
Yeah.
later, we find ourselves back in 1893 to the beginning of this
Mm-hmm.
story, where the woman who was previously on trial went to see Tourette in his office and claimed that she had been hypnotized at
Right.
Salpêtrière and had lost her will, and that affected like her ability to work and do anything.
Right.
So for that reason, she demanded payback. When he didn't comply with the request, she shot him, and that's what creates the irony now. Because now Tourette, having written everything that he wrote up, has become a victim of a hypnotic crime, something he deemed impossible, leaving his rivals ecstatic. But he recovered from his wounds.
Right. Oh, he actually, like, he didn't die.
No, he didn't die from this. And it turned out that hypnotism wasn't what caused the woman's issues.
Oh, shit.
Articles I read didn't really point out to what did, or if anyone actually properly pinpointed, like, what specifically she was going
Mm-hmm.
through. However, this interest and fascination with hypnotic crime kind of stayed strong well into present day,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. Um, because in the end, regardless of its like scientific merit, the idea is compelling, and it brings forward that kind of discussion of the human will and condition, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
I was having a thought. Yeah, as I was gonna present it at the very beginning, but I was like, maybe I should wait till like you finish your case.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing is, what I remember once a professor in one of my psych classes tell me, or the class, is that a lot of people today, because like people aren't,
Hmm.
women especially, because now they have rights and stuff and are able to like do things on their own, they're not as naive, right? They know what they're doing, they're more independent and responsible. So when it comes to hypnosis, the people that generally, regardless of gender, they the people that are who tend to get hypnotized more are the people who are more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Whether it be through social problems, personal problems, they're going through something. And like you said, you don't know if this woman had other issues going on in her life.
And funny enough, that is kind of a conclusion we kind of get to later on, yeah.
So I'm starting to feel like there's some things that make sense to me when it comes to hypnosis and crimes. Like these people are already vulnerable. They're dealing with a issue already, and that's why it's easier. Whether you say it's
True. And yeah, I totally agree with that. I'll talk more about it after the next one.
it's the power of hypnosis, or if it's the power of persuasion and convincing someone that they should commit a crime or do something. I think when a person is more vulnerable, it's easier to push them to that point where they're actually willing to commit a crime. That is just a thought.
But I guess to finish off with this case, just like a general comment, what I found kind of curious was that so during the period of the late 1800s, early 1900s, so around the time that this case happened, it became more generally accepted that the following two things were true. That one, a person could be remote hypnotized, and two, that once you were hypnotized, you were completely at the mercy of the hypnotist's suggestion. So, which kind of aligns a little bit to aligns a lot to like the whole Nancy school of thought that an evil hypnotist could compel like the most virtuous person to committing a crime.
Yeah, I was like thinking maybe that's the conclusion, so I didn't say it. But like the more you're talking about the case, the more I'm like, yeah, you know what? I was thinking about that. Maybe I should say it.
But it also led to a lot of defendants getting a get out of free card from jail, but not the hypnotists, which I found kind of curious. So it does call into question, like, the legitimacy, or
Hmm.
today looking back at those cases, I'm like, calls into question a lot of them.
I wonder if it's because like the person being hypnotized is seen more of a victim, whereas the person doing the hypnotizing is seen more of the person committing a crime. Like you are putting someone at risk and you're making them hypnotized. You're getting them hypnotized. Therefore, you're the bad person.
Yeah, I see that, but I would also say that because it's such a like it was such a new thing, that quite honestly, you might have had like a lot of
Yeah.
lawyers being like, look, is there anyone you know in your life who's capable of hypnotism? Nobody knows what it is yet.
I can suggest that
You were
today,
hypnotized
when you
and
say
then
like
running with it.
that one school of thought, I think it was Nancy, that someone can be in
Hmm.
absolute control of you. That no longer, I think it was debunked. So someone can't be in fully in control of you. Well, consent is a factor. So
Yeah, I agree.
if you go to a magic show and the magician's like, oh, I need some people to hypnotize, the consent has to be there. But
Yeah, it's
it's
true.
not true. Like, someone can't be like out of nowhere at any point of the day being like, I have full grasp of this person. That I think has been debunked.
Okay, so now jumping a few decades ahead.
There was another thing I wanted to add when I explained about when I was explaining the other thing. It's not gonna come back to me. I'll interrupt you when it does.
Okay.
Oh, it came back. It came back. So, the other thing that is also
Hmm.
true, people who tend to get hypnotized generally believe in the process of hypnosis
Mm,
and the power that it has.
yeah.
The people who tend to not get hypnotized are the ones that are the skeptics. They're the ask questions a lot. They don't believe in the process. So with vulnerability, if you're vulnerable and you're like, if you're in that headspace, like sometimes we do like tarot card readers. When people go through a bad time, they go to a tarot reader, which is expensive. Some people say it's a scam, some people don't. Whatever you choose to believe, it doesn't matter. It's like it's a business. For some people it works, and some people it doesn't. But like if you think about it, if someone's in a vulnerable space
Yeah.
and they believe in hypnosis and they go to a hypnotizer because they believe the process works, they're kind of setting themselves up to be in that position
Hmm.
where they're completely open to ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
I
the
see that.
other thing that I wanted to add. But I'm glad I caught it right before you started your next point.
That ties into this case too, actually.
Okay, good. We're on the same boat.
Yeah, so jumping a few decades ahead to 1951, and we have the Copenhagen Hypnosis murders.
This one sounds fun.
So the crime, in of itself is quite straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
The result of the investigation afterwards is where things get weird. So the Copenhagen hypnotized murder was a double homicide related to an attempted bank robbery in Denmark on March 29th, 1951.
We have listeners from Denmark.
So, yeah, when you told me that earlier, I was like, oh, I hope
Oh
I get
shit.
this right. So, first we have Pale Hadra, who committed the robbery,
Right.
and in the process shot one of the bank's cashiers and the branch manager. So they were Hans Wisbom and
Mm-hmm.
Kaj Mahler. So Hardrup then rode his bicycle
Yeah.
to a nearby street and broke into the building. Only in Europe would you have a getaway vehicle be a bike. I'm just saying, not. Wait, how
It's
does it?
not suspicious.
Don't be
I would imagine
suspicious.
it's
Don't
not
be
suspicious.
suspicious. That's running through my head right now.
Yeah. I assume everybody has bikes in that area during that time period. I mean,
Well,
everybody has
yeah,
bikes here now too, but I'd assume it's just the least suspicious getaway vehicle.
motor transportation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, rode his bike to a nearby street, broke into a building. Several witnesses followed him in and pointed police to a stairwell where Hadrup tried to hide. He immediately surrendered when to police without resistance, and that's it. Now the investigation. So when we go into the investigation, so first off, we start off with the bike
Mm-hmm.
which was, as just stated, used as a getaway vehicle. It
Okay.
belonged to another individual by the name of Bjorn Shaw Nielsen. A few days after the incident, Nielsen himself calls the police and wanted to check that Hadrup was not a robbery suspect, apparently because he used Nielsen's bike.
Right.
So there's a bit of history with these two when it comes to hypnotism, I guess. So what we know is that Nielsen and Hadra previously shared a cell at Horsens State Penitentiary
Ooh.
and served time after World War II for treason.
Okay.
My understanding from what I'd read online was that Hadrup was involved with the Nazis
Right.
for a period of time. Nielsen as well. I'm not sure. So during their time in prison, both were into Asian philosophy, yoga, yoga,
Yogurt.
yoga, and hypnosis. After the robbery, the police started to suspect that Nielsen may have used hypnosis to manipulate Hudrup into committing the bank robbery and related murders.
Mm-hmm.
So this theory was supported by the by 40 eyewitness testimonies that they got from the prison they were in, where
Mm-hmm.
inmates and guards at Horsens would indicate that Hardrup was already under Nielsen's mental control. He was regularly hypnotized
Right.
while he was there. And the investigation was then led by a forensic investigator by the name of Roland Olson, where
Mm-hmm.
Olson, assisted by police department's chief psychiatrist, Max Schmidt, and a Dr. Paul Lettier. Both of them used suggestion and hypnosis to investigate Hardrup's mental state and determine his susceptibility to hypnotism. Because later Dr. Later had studied hypnotic
Mm-hmm.
criminal activity before, and he believed that it was possible to hypnotize others to commit crimes. Back to the school of
Nancy.
Nancy that we talked about previously. So when we get to the trial, it was
Mm-hmm.
Rater who testified that a person could be hypnotized to commit a crime / do something they normally wouldn't do, assuming that the act
Yeah.
is morally justified. This is the part that's interesting, because he comes up with this theory stating that Nielsen had already begun to mentally and emotionally manipulate Hudrup in prison, eventually making Hudrup not only open to murder, but murder in an unavoidable situation. Air quotations on the unavoidable part
Mm-hmm.
of that. So after a series of extensive legal proceedings, a lot of back and forth, finally ended in 1955. Hudrup was sentenced to an indefinite imprisonment at the Hardsted Vester Institute, which I think is like a mental institution or hospital, while the Danish Supreme Court maintained Nielsen's life sentence, maintained that Nielsen keep the life sentence and refused to reopen the case. At the time of the Supreme Court's ruling, the Danish Medical Law Council said it could neither confirm nor
Mm-hmm.
challenge Ryder's theory.
Yeah.
And then in December of 1956, that same council issued its final public statement on the case, indicating that Hardrup's mental state had a serious mental disorder,
Yeah.
i.e., the influence of others or hypnosis. This wasn't really clear, whether or not they accepted hypnotism as being the reason, but maybe indirectly that's what was being stated. Then we jump to 1960, where we have a subcommittee of the Strasbourg Human Rights Court, which found that Nielsen had been properly convicted by the Danish judicial authorities. This judgment was further upheld by the Human Rights Court in 1961, and then in 1967, Nielsen and Hudrup were released independently. Why? I do not know. Is this a good behavior situation?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, could not tell you.
I'm wondering if during that time, I don't know when hypnosis and the study in
Yeah,
psychology really started to take off. I'm wondering if they found more information and they thought that maybe it wasn't hypnosis.
yeah. I would say it would have been throughout the 1900s.
But that could be wrong because I don't know when it really was being studied.
Yeah.
Definitely in
So
the later years, but I'm not exactly sure when. Unless somebody's like, "This is ridiculous and stupid," which to me, I'll let you finish. Then I'll tell you what I think.
we finish off with Nielsen committing suicide in 1974 with potassium cyanide, and Hadrup dying in 2012. Through what specifically, I don't know. Now, this has led to a film adaptation, which I want to watch at some point, called Murder Trance, premiered in 2018, and the director, screenwriter, and co-producer Art Halonen was one of the few people who first met and interviewed Hadrup
Mm-hmm.
in 1997. So he's probably, I'm hoping there's some interviews that are kind of built into there, maybe
Oh, okay.
actual footage from interviews with Hadra. Okay, so kind of going back though, writer's theory here is what kind of made me take a pause on whether or not somebody could commit a crime under hypnosis, as in at first I would have been like, no, or somebody would need to be really susceptible. But writer's theory here kind of points to something else, that you can be convinced to commit a crime, but it requires a lot of manipulation and it needs to build off of beliefs you already have. So if you're taking somebody and you're convincing them that, hey, like, I'm in charge of you and everything that has to do with you and your entire being, or I start like threatening like your kids or something, or saying that, oh, that person right there is going to hurt you and your family, then I start layering that manipulation over
Mm-hmm.
stuff that you care about. And in which case, I guess, and but then I ask myself, like, okay, is that what hypnotism really is, or is that now something else entirely?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's about it
Yeah.
on Copenhagen ones. But yeah, what I have right now is just like
Mm-hmm.
a conclusion discussing a bit more on my thoughts after looking at those two.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess to finish off, like, it's interesting to consider how hypnotic crimes were like so accepted early on.
No, I agree with that. I was like, I feel like, yeah, again, it goes into the theory that I want to talk about, so I'll let you finish.
And now there's like barely a court out there that will accept the defense, unless there's like a lot of evidence to it.
Yeah.
Like prevailing ideas today, I think, follow more the Charcot school of thought, where you can't be hypnotized against your own will, um, to do something that's against your values, morals,
Yeah, go
you
ahead.
know, in accordance with anyone else. However, like, looking at the Copenhagen situation specifically, yeah, I would counter and agree with anyone else who is of the mind that like someone
Yeah.
could be influenced under the context of their beliefs or manipulation using
Oh,
things or
yeah,
people that matter
for
to them.
sure.
And like I said earlier, for example, activating someone's fight response by convincing them, their child is in danger. And people are manipulated
Yeah.
every day to do things that's not in their best interest.
Mm-hmm.
Take just abusive relationships in general, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta hit them where they're vulnerable.
yeah.
And I don't know if that's saying like screaming hypnosis.
So that's yeah, that I guess that's where I kind of get a bit confused then. But like I do agree though that like hypnotism, like I still think that, yeah, it does exist. And when it's used to help a patient, like I indicated at the very beginning of this whole thing, by saying that it can be used, to like help people regain memories, especially from trauma, shock, and all of that, then yeah, it's like a really great asset. I can definitely imagine that. And I would even agree that if somebody that it is possible somebody could be hypnotized to commit a crime, it's just
It's just manipulation tactics and just knowing the person well and knowing what's going to trigger them.
not in the way that you would expect or sensationalized in media. And maybe that's something that should kind of be updated, I guess. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, the first of all, I want to just kind of going back to what we said a little few seconds ago, that if today if today a case in court was to suggest hypnosis, I feel like that case would get dismissed
Hmm.
so quickly. And I'm even if it goes through, if the case goes through with context of hypnosis, I really want to see like what sort of evidence there would be. So, yeah, I'm quite curious about that now, and I will probably see if I can find anything that has happened in the Canadian criminal justice system that has to do with hypnosis. That was the side note. But to be honest, I am a little bit skeptical. I'm not quite sure what I think about the first one. Maybe the first one kind of falls through because I did mention like maybe she was just in a vulnerable state. But definitely with the two men, I'm not sure if this is what I would call
Yeah.
hypnosis. If these two were like cellmates, we don't know the conversations that these two had. We don't know the influence that one had over the other or what, you know, just anything.
Hmm.
the there could be a conversation where one kind of built this huge trust through manipulation, through conversation, through whatever, that made the other guy kind of being like, you know what, I'm gonna do whatever you say because we
Yeah.
have the similar ideas, we have similar beliefs, and this just makes sense.
One article that I'd read was calling, well, essentially calling BS on the whole thing, and saying that one thing that people keep forgetting was that this guy was involved with the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
So if his mind was already like, it I don't know at what point and how much and
Yeah.
where his morals and values and all that stuff lied, but assuming he was okay with what was going on, that's already somebody who is okay with a lot more, I guess. Yeah, a lot more open to other things. Like, I wouldn't be such a stretch. I don't know if it would be to like convince them of like murder necessarily. What I find the most curious too is that when looking at the Copenhagen murders, they don't really explain like, okay, why the robbery? What
Yeah.
was the point of that in the first place? Why did you need to manipulate someone to go do that for you?
Again, like we don't know the conversations that they were having. Yeah.
That's true, yeah. So yeah, I'll take a look at Murder Trance and kind of see what I can find from there because I feel like that might have maybe a bit more information. Um,
I'd be down to watch it with you
Murder
if you want to
Trance movie
do.
party.
Yeah. So, but it's really interesting, and I mean, I'm not fully convinced. I'm curious to know what happened that allowed them to get released. Did the court deem that hypnosis wasn't enough to keep them in
Hmm.
jail, or what was the case? But I'm quite curious to figure it out. I'm not convinced with this one. Um, just because again we don't know, um, with this one especially, we don't know like whether the person hypnotizing had knowledge of how to hypnotize people, and I don't think.
Oh no, that was a subject matter that they were really into when they were in prison.
But is that enough to being like
To being able to do it.
yeah, I feel like this
Mm.
is more of like manipulating, controlling, and just being that over the top influence.
Yeah.
You know how cult
Hmm.
leaders? Yeah, that kind of mentality.
No, I hear.
Yeah, so this one guy was just being that really supportive person, and the other guy just fell in a trap and got sucked right in. So that's my thinking, and that's why I'm
Hmm.
skeptical that this might not be hypnosis. But I'm really curious. I'm curious because, like, let's say in like the next 5 episodes you do all hypnosis cases.
Yep.
I'm curious to find out if there is one that really convinces
Hmm.
us, or me in general, that this is like a crime was committed because someone was hypnotized, you know?
Yeah, I think if I kept going with this, like it would be interesting to kind of come across more cases. The only thing is,
You'll get bored. I'm just kidding.
oh no 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 no, not that I'll get bored. It's just we'll start getting into the sexual assault cases. Yeah, there's quite a few of them,
Yeah, I
and they were giving me pause.
minus the trigger warnings, and I will also leave it up to our editor Neha to decide if we do those types of episode, what she wants to keep in and
Yeah.
what she wants to take out. I'm okay with it, and
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Everyone, thanks for your time today. Not sure what else I'm going to investigate, but we'll see. I might continue with the hypnosis crimes or go off to do something new.
Yeah, but no, like in the comments, let us know if you're convinced that
Hmm.
the people in the cases today were hypnotized or not, or are you skeptical as well? And let us know what you think. DM us. We love your DMs. We've got one today, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, especially if there's some things you think I missed with this case, or if there are other, more convincing cases, I think, regards to like hypnotic crimes, please feel free to send them our way. I'm honestly always down to take suggestions and
Mm-hmm.
see what you all want us to cover. But anyways, please take some time to comment, like, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever else you're seeing this, and tune in for another session next time. Where do we know what we're posting next time?
No. Wait, it would be me. It's my episode. But
Okay, well, tune in for another section next time where something will be posted and we will discuss about something.
it's all up
Otherwise,
in the air.
thank y'all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.